It is Tuesday, May 7th, 2024. I'm back here with Brendan. We are Statletics, and today we have an exciting show for you guys. We're walking through QB tiers for the 2024 season. So basically what we're going to do is Brendan and I, we've both sat down and we've ranked each QB from a tier system. I have 7 tiers, Brendan has 5 tiers, so we're a little different in that manner, but at the end of the day, we're just going to argue where we think certain quarterbacks stand from a rankings and a tier kind of standpoint. So today we're just diving into the quarterbacks and basically what we think and how they compare to each other. So going to lay out some ground rules first. The manner in which we approached this was for the 2024 season. If you were a head coach or GM, and this is the only year that you are operating as a head coach or GM, and you could put a team together, how would you rank each quarterback for this specific year? Not if you were to start a franchise and who would you want to start a franchise with, or, historically, who do you think is the better quarterback? This is for the 2024 season and who we think, is going to be better or worse just in this upcoming season outright. So those are the ground rules that we laid. We have a lot of exciting stuff that we're going to argue out, but nonetheless, we're going to have some fun with it. Brendan, how are we doing, man?
I'm good, dude. I was really excited preparing for the show, and I did a little rehearsal with Peyton, and she thought it was great. So we're good. We're good. I said you're not going to know who most of these people are, but I'm just going to do it, right?
Yeah. We're definitely going to get a little heated. I can already tell, but it's going to be all in good spirits, all in good fun. If you're watching online, please let us know in the comments what we got right, what we got wrong. Who do you think's better? Who do you think's worse? I'm sure we're going to have plenty of controversial takes in regards to who we think the better and worst quarterbacks are going into the 2024 season. So I'll start it off because I have one tier and one person in this one particular tier. It is called the Patrick Mahomes tier, and he is the sole proprietor and sole owner of tier 1. So it's pretty straightforward as is. I mean, I don't even think I have to argue this necessarily. I think he's the best quarterback in football, and undoubtedly, if I was going to be coaching a team for one year in 2024, I would want Patrick Mahomes as my quarterback. I just think that's hard to argue given his success and his track record and his trajectory moving forward. It's amazing what he's done with the little amount of talent that he's had in the receiving corps, even after Tyreek Hill left. Going on and winning another Super Bowl with really just Travis Kelce is phenomenal. So I know he's got Andy Reid calling plays. A lot of people can argue with me against that about Andy Reid's really the mastermind behind his success, which definitely helps, but his talent cannot be argued against. So the Patrick Mahomes tier, I think it's here to stay. Brendan, straightforward, easy enough. Do you respect it?
It is. It is. I respect it. I respect it.
So I know your tier, your first tier, is a little bit different. Let me hear who you got in tier 1 of your rankings.
Yeah. Not at all different, because tier 1 is the Patrick Mahomes tier. I have the exact same one there. And we did not discuss these beforehand. Just want to put that out there. I'm really curious because we talked so much about it if we have similar stuff here, which I hope so. But yeah, I mean, Andy Reid might be calling the plays, but if Andy Reid was calling the plays for me, I mean, we wouldn't win a single game. So you got to be able to make the throws. I think he'll finish his career with the most Super Bowls of all time. I think that he is probably the best quarterback of all time when he gets done. So the Patrick Mahomes tier is tier 1.
Okay. Well, I'm glad we're on the same page at least.
On the same page.
Great minds think alike. Okay. Well, then, with that being said, I'm sure we can make an argument against, maybe why Patrick Mahomes shouldn't have a tier on his own, but I'm not going to do it just because it doesn't make any sense. Let's go straight into tier 2. Do you want to start off, or do you want me to roll off with who I got in there? I got 4 guys.
I have 4 guys.
Okay. All right. And
you go
again,
ahead.
Like Brendan said,
you go ahead.
We didn't say a single word to each other about this, so I'm very interested to see if these are exact in an exact alignment. So, in no particular order either, kind of, but no particular order. Tier 2, Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson, Joe Burr, Justin Herbert.
Oh, we're off.
Wow. Okay. Okay, well, who do you start off with? Who you have in alignment in tier 2, and then let me know who you have replacing and who it is.
So if you look at the profile of my guys in tier 2, my tier 2 is basically can win you ball games by themselves. This is a guy that if you have on your team, you can be confident that no matter who he's got around him, that I think that they can get wins. Okay, and
Okay.
I have Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson, and these are also equal because they all have rushing equity except for the last one. Jalen Hurts and CJ Stroud.
Oh, wow. Okay. So we'll fixate on that.
Stroud.
Jalen Hurts and CJ Stroud are your two differences from my Joe Burrow and Justin Herbert. And they're very contrasting quarterbacks.
Yep.
Well, maybe not so CJ Stroud as much, but Jalen Hurts definitely. So let's lock into that. Let's start with Jalen Hurts. Tell me why you have Jalen Hurts in tier 2 above guys like Joe Burrow and Justin Herbert.
Well, we're talking about the 2024 season also, right? So that includes, I mean, my rankings were not barring on just the quarterback, right? It's the environment they have around them. And we've seen Jalen Hurts be an absolute animal near the goal line and absolutely elevate their team, as well as having the rushing equity to get outside the pocket. And he's got amazing weapons on the outside that he uses, like if he was, I don't know, Derek Carr, he wouldn't be there even if he was with the same team. So I think that he's come a long way since his first season with a lot of interceptions, and that he deserves of this, can elevate a team and basically carry a team on his back. And do you have any rebuttal to
that? Yeah, I think last year, I mean, it's tough because it's crazy. The season that he had, he was still in contention for an MVP award. So I can't really rebuke that necessarily. I think that with what he had available to himself last year, he should have done more. And I know that's a very subjective thing to say, but in my opinion, I think that certain guys would thrive better in the environment that he was in. So that's kind of why I have, I think if you place Justin Herbert or Joe Burrow in that environment, throwing to A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith, that they could find just as much success, if not more. Now, the argument against that is, like you said, rushing equity. Those guys don't have the ability to rush the football like Jalen Hurts does. I think, albeit even excluding the tush push, Jalen Hurts being able to take off and run physically, let alone that, definitely bolsters his, ranking in my opinion. But, that's my main rebuttal. But pivoting to your CJ Stroud pick, I actually love that. And I very much respect it. It's something that I wanted to do. I just couldn't put above those guys.
Yeah.
But man, it would be really hard to watch what he did last year in 2023 as a rookie, a guy who's brand new, he's not new to the game of football, but he's brand new to the NFL, of course. And that's just such a thing to overcome, the mental aspect of that, and go out there and ball, especially with guys like, Nico Collins and Tank Dell. They're phenomenal receivers, but they're not the other elite guys yet. But now he's going to have Stephon Diggs. It's going to be a party for the Houston Texans offense this year. And I think if CJ Stroud can even marginally up his game from last year, he's absolutely in elite status as it is now. So I can't even really rebuke that. I agree with that more so than on your Jalen Hurts pick.
Yeah, my main reason for putting him there is, on paper, this team should not have made the playoffs last year. If you look at it from the start of the season, now, granted, it could have been players that we just didn't know about yet, right? But from the start of the season, if you told me that CJ Stroud was going to lead the Texans to the playoffs, I would have said, probably not.
I know.
And so just that elevation of his team around him with that, because it all starts with the quarterback. And I just think, it's only up from here, really.
Yeah, and he's a dog.
Yeah, he's so good.
He's a dog, and he's got that dog mentality.
Yeah.
So, well, moving into tier 3, after talking about those two guys.
Hold on. What about your guys? Justin Herbert and Joe Burrow.
Okay, so we'll talk about that. Joe Burrow is one that is a bit contentious in the fact that he obviously didn't really play last year because he got hurt. But I think that he's kind of proven himself at this point. He was of the similar stature of like CJ Stroud was, young in his career. He elevated the Bengals immediately. He took him to a Super Bowl when they really shouldn't have gone to a Super Bowl. Now, I know he's got talent on the outside, significantly better than what CJ Stroud is working with. But I just think we've seen Joe Burrow be elite, and when healthy, he can absolutely shred anybody, And there was a point in time where people thought that Joe Burrow, owned Mahomes, and he had a winning record against Mahomes. So I think that is a good argument point there for Joe Burrow. Now I can hear the arguments against it with guys like CJ Stroud. I certainly think he's better than Jalen Hurts. So I very much stand firm on that. Justin Herbert, I know he's going to have a tough time this year with a lack of weapons, but I have this innate bias for Justin Herbert because I think he has some of the he is the best raw talent at the quarterback position. And I just think that his circumstances have been so poor from a coaching perspective and a roster perspective and even just a front office perspective. It's been kind of a malpractice sort of thing in the sport of football. And given a better situation, I think we would even be having the argument that Justin Herbert is better than Patrick Mahomes, if he was put in a better environment. So I know that's a bold thing to say, but I think Justin Herbert's talent and football IQ alone elevates him above most starters in the league. Fair agreement? Fair assessment?
Yeah, that's very fair. And I'll tell you why, because those are in my next tier, but I'll tell you why they weren't in that top tier, and it's not fair. But, Burrow had a really significant injury. Herbert's been a little banged up every now and then. I somehow subconsciously took that into my mindset in doing these, because all the guys up top that I mentioned so far have yet to be hurt, significantly been out. So that's why we're down.
Yeah, and we're not playing hypotheticals here. If everybody stays healthy, if you're a GM or a coach, and you certainly have the ability to make a decision based off of health concerns. That's absolutely something that GMs and coaches do today. So it would be stupid not to. So I respect that. Understand it. Definitely agree with it. So
yeah,
but I love those guys, and I think their raw talent is just insane. So tier 3, speaking of your guys in tier 2, CJ Stroud and Jalen Hurts, they lead up my tier 3. And then from there, I go Dak, Prescott, Jordan Love, and Aaron Rodgers. And I think most of them are pretty fair assessments. And the Jordan Love might be a steep, reach.
No,
in this given tier. But I think based off of his performance last year, some of the weapons that he's getting this year, and just his trajectory that he seems to be on from the end of last year, coming out of the playoffs of last year, man, he's going to be dangerous. And I think he is going to ball no matter what. So before we dive into any more of it, Brendan, tier 3, let me know who you got.
All right, so I do have less tiers, so that means my tiers are bigger. So I'll just run them down. All of yours that you had in there are in my tier 3, except for the ones that I had in tier 2. Okay, and we switched those tier 2 and tier 3 ones with I have Joe Burrow and Justin Herbert in this tier. And tier 3 for me is, if you're a GM, you can win a Super Bowl with these guys. These are plenty fine quarterbacks. They're more on the good to great side of quarterbacks, but I don't think that they can carry a team like my guys in tier 2.
Outright. Okay. So you're saying they would need an additional superstar receiver or something like that. Okay.
And most of these do. Okay. So, so your tier, you had, what did you say? Dak Prescott, Jordan Love, and Aaron Rodgers. Okay. I have them all in there. And then I also have Tua, Jared Goff, Brock Purdy, and Anthony Richardson. I put in at the end.
Okay. I love the Richardson. Love the Richardson. Now, I know a lot of people are going to be pissed off about that because they're going to be like, hey, he only played, few games last year, and he's only a rookie last year. You barely even seen him play, so
let me argue. Brother could be in tier 2 if he wouldn't have gotten hurt. Okay, depending on how his season went, he really could.
Mm-hmm.
So that's my argument to that. Like he was solely in tier 3 this whole time, but because of that injury, we need to see if he can prove himself. But like you were saying about having an extra weapon there, like Dak's got CD2, he's got Tyreek, Jared Goff's got Amon-Ra, Laporta, Purdy has everybody, and it just kind of goes down the list there. And I think if you're a GM, you're completely happy with this. You're not looking for any sort of quarterback change or quarterback for the future. And these are just solid guys that, all had great seasons last year, except for the ones that were hurt, And so I'm happy with these guys. If I'm a GM and I go here, then I am extremely happy.
Yeah, that's a tough one because I'll talk about Jared Goff and Brock Purdy for a minute.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of these guys are also going to argue this with, the system quarterback type argument and stuff, and which I would, somewhat agree with in some circumstances. Now, I think these guys are definitely warrant, some respect in terms of how they operate the offenses as efficiently as they do. But Brock Purdy, Jared Goff, talk about those guys and why you felt compelled to put them in tier 3.
Well, if you take Jared Goff of old, I don't put him here at all. My, good old Jared Stink,
Yeah.
But, this isn't a guy who can elevate like the team as a whole and cannot. Just him doesn't bring you wins, right? But the system is a valid argument. But in the system that he's in, he hits the guys and he was able to bring to the playoffs and make a deep run. And should have beaten the 49ers. I mean, they were up at, I don't know, what was it, 21 or something like that? 17. And so that's, I have less tiers, right? And you're going to see the tier drop after this tier. And so that's why I have him near the bottom of my tier 3, but still in there. And with Brock Purdy, I mean, what was he had the best completion percentage over 20 yards, like in the NFL. Like, even if you're in a system like that, like, you still got to make the throw.
And he led QBs in quarterback EPA per play.
Yeah.
One of the most efficient quarterbacks in football last year.
Yeah.
Fun fact. And, and some of the same stuff can be said for Jared Goff. I'll give you some stats that will say, Jared Goff is a good quarterback, and I'll also give you some stats where someone can argue system quarterback. So passing productivity, passing yards, he was number 2 in the league last year. Air yards, he was number 11 in the league last year. Money throws, he was number 12 in the league last year. Pressured throws, he was number 6 in the league last year. He was 4th overall in total passing touchdowns last year as well. Efficiency, he was number 9th overall in yards per attempt, 7th overall in adjusted yards per attempt. But here's where you get into maybe some system stuff. Air yards per attempt, he was 2nd to last in the league. So in layman's terms, he didn't really have to stretch the field that much. He could dink and dunk with Amon-Ra, which I would do the same thing. Don't blame him for that. He was number 20th in pressured completion percentage, and 16th overall in production premium. So 15th overall in QBR. There were some, middle of the road stats there, but some also stats that you can handpick and say or show that he is a very respectable quarterback in the league. So it goes both ways. Same with Brock Purdy. I think that the 49ers are very happy with what they have in Brock Purdy, and I don't blame them. I think if, all he needs to do is just operate as efficient as he has been. He's doing everything right. He's getting his playmakers the ball. What more can you ask a quarterback from, Truly.
That's what he's there to do. Get the playmakers the ball.
That's right. So I know you had Tua and Brock Purdy and Jared Goff in there. So disclaimer, jumping into tier 4, Jared Goff is not even in this tier. So I thought a little bit lower of Jared Goff. Brock Purdy
tier 4
and Tua are in tier 4. So similar to tier 3. Then I get into Trevor Lawrence, Kirk Cousins, Stafford, and Richardson. So that's my tier 4. So a little bit of overlap with your tier 3. And some guys, and similar thought process. I think these guys can can win, and I think they can win it all given the right circumstances, given the right pieces, and given like a solid defense to kind of help them out a little bit. So all in all, and I think this goes to say I think highly of Anthony Richardson as well. To put him in the same pool as guys like, Trevor, Kirk, Brock, Stafford, that's me speaking highly of Anthony Richardson. Tua, the reason he wasn't in tier 3 for me was some of his later season performance, especially, and really I'm trying not to be biased towards, the outcome of like 1 or 2 games, but especially the cold weather game against the Chiefs when he literally just fell flat on his face. Like that, you can't do that. You have to be ready to go no matter what the conditions are, what the circumstances are. And, especially in prime time, he just stumbled, fell flat on his face. So, and he's working with, 2 speedsters on the outside. He's got Jalen Waddle and Tyreek Hill. It's kind of hard to mess that up. And one of the best offensive masterminds in the entire league, and Mike McDaniel calling the plays. I think Tua can certainly win, and I think the Dolphins can win with Tua. That I think they can go all the way, but it's almost as if they need certain things to fall their way. They need certain dominoes to fall a certain way in order for them to get there. So I think that's fair. But Brendan, which of these guys overlap with maybe some of your tier 5? And do you kind of dispute any of the guys that I have in my tier 4, or do you agree, disagree? Let me know.
I don't dispute anybody. I mean, we're getting into the. Are we getting in? We're nearly getting into. We're in the middle half and the lower half of the quarterbacks here, and I mean there is a substantial gap. I would say, from the top guys down. So you could go either way. It's just kind of personal preference with it. But in my tier 4, was that your tier 4 or 3? That was your 4.
That was my 4. Yep.
That was your 4. So again, my tiers are larger than yours. But in my tier 4, I had the same as you as far as Stafford, Cousins, and Lawrence. I also had in there, and my last tier is called tier ass. Okay, so pretty much everyone else who you would be like whatever, But I've got Stafford and Kirk are in my tier 4, I guess primarily for the age and the previous injuries there. And I was thinking at first making these that it was more than like a year plan, so that would be why they were down there a little bit. I've got Baker with Trevor and Justin Fields and Kyler Murray. And then the 4 rookies, because they haven't proven anything yet, but I wouldn't want to put them in tier ass because, we don't know yet. So, and they should all, respectively on their teams. I mean, they're the top 3 picks and the 11th pick. So,
yeah.
But the reason I have these guys lower than my tier 3 is this is my tier of, you might need to look for a future quarterback, and we can talk about the Lawrence thing in a second.
Okay. That's bold.
But this is my you're not sitting great tier right here.
Okay. So elaborate on Trevor Lawrence real quick.
Your thoughts. I know you're going to pull up some stats, right? I know you're going to, but
maybe they help you. Maybe
they might help me. I have no idea, but all I know is it's not fair because of the team surrounding hasn't been amazing, but I guess I expected more from a number 1 pick than what I've seen so far. And I mean, there were other number 1 picks down here with Baker and like Kyler. So, which is interesting, I think. But, these guys are still young. They still have, the ability to prove higher than this tier if they want to prove me wrong. But from what I've seen so far, I just had the other guys in front of them who I'd rather have moving forward.
Okay, so some stats real quick.
Mm-hmm.
He was 10th overall in passing yards last year, 5th overall in total air yards last year, 7th overall in money throws.
What's a money throw?
What? So it's like a
basket?
Yeah, it's like an accuracy rating integrated with your depth of target. So it's over 20 yards, and you're like dead on accurate. But danger plays and interceptable passes, he ranks 4th overall in the league. So which is bad. You want to be near the bottom, not the top. In terms of efficiency, he was 17th overall in yards per attempt, 19th overall in adjusted yards per attempt. He was, let's see here, jump down, 16th overall in true completion percentage, 28th overall in pressured completion percentage, 20th overall in play action completion percentage, and 16th overall in red zone completion percentage. So, and then 22nd overall in true passer rating, 14th overall in QBR. So very average.
Yeah.
Very average. And, I kind of understand where you're coming from. I think that Trevor Lawrence does have the ability to lead a team to success, but from a numbers perspective and based on his situation at the Jaguars, he, when he was drafted to the Jaguars, it was a bad situation, but now he can't use that. He's got Doug Peterson, which we know to be a fine offensive mind. He may not be the greatest, but he's fine. The weapons he had certainly, better than what other guys are working with. He had Calvin Ridley, and I know he had Zay Jones, but Evan Ingram, he was a stud last year. Trevor Etienne, certainly balling out. Christian Kirk is his go-to guy. He's a great, slot receiver. And you would almost expect a lot more out of Trevor Lawrence, and he couldn't even, win one of the worst divisions in football last year. You know? So that says a lot about the guy. So that certainly is, a good way to kind of refute those who stand on the Trevor Lawrence hill thinking he's better than most. So I see where you're coming from. It makes a lot of sense. I actually, could see myself dropping him maybe another tier into my tier 5, which tier 5 for me is Jared Goff, Baker Mayfield, and Kyler Murray, Geno Smith. So Geno Smith is a hot one. I also added Caleb Williams in here. I know he hasn't even played a snap of NFL football, but I think if I was gonna coach a team next year, given the weapons that Caleb Williams has, and I think given his ceiling, I have to put him here.
He's set up the best of any number 1 overall pick like ever.
Yeah. And then I'll go into my tier 6 as well to kind of make this argument as well.
Yeah.
I would rather have Caleb Williams, especially in his current situation, over Derek Carr, Bryce Young, Deshaun Watson, and then I have the 3 rookies here: JJ McCarthy, Jayden Daniels, Drake May. So that to me made the most sense. And then my tier 7, tier ass, subsequently followed with Daniel Jones, Will Levis, Bo Nix, Russell Wilson, and Aiden O'Connell. So, I think that makes complete sense in my opinion. So it's just, and to your point, tier 6 and tier 7 could probably be lumped into the low tier, one giant bad tier. I just wanted to give the rookies a bit more credit than that, because I certainly think JJ McCarthy, Jayden Daniels, and Drake May can definitely be better than Daniel Jones. I think they'll certainly be better than Bo Nix. Maybe he surprises me with Sean Payton. The state of Russell Wilson right now, not good. And I think I would rather have the rookies. And certainly
I put Fields in instead of Wilson. That's how much I think less of Russell Wilson.
Oh wow, okay, that makes sense though. That makes sense.
That's how much. They start with Russ, but I think Fields will end up being the guy. Like Russ got 1 year left, maybe. Like I think they'll end up moving on from him.
Yeah, I hope so. It's sad too because I used to think so highly of Russell Wilson. I thought he was like Peyton Manning with, running ability.
Yeah.
And it's just sad to see him go from a guy like that at the Seahawks to, being completely broken and mentally just incapable of fixing to the Broncos. I blame Nathaniel Hackett for that. I really do.
It's bad. Real bad.
But he's like, I think the mental state that Russell Wilson is in, I think with how much confidence he's just lost over time, I think it'll be hard to get that back, especially, as he's on the downhill of his career. It's just not a good spot to be in for Russell Wilson. I just don't see him, making it out. I think they do lean on Justin Fields a bit down the stretch.
Yeah, I would hope so. To round out to round out my tier A. We just got a tier ASS. We just got to keep it family friendly. So I wrote all these pet names down for these guys, but I'll insert it with some family friendly words. DePoop Watson, Gino Dump, Derek Stink, Gardner Minpoop, Will Lev Poop.
Nice.
Daniel Bones, Bryce Too Young, and Bo Nix. That's what I have for my tier. You suck. You need to move on. You got to move on.
And I'll give Bryce Young some credit. I think that he's just in a horrible situation.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and I think with Canales coming in being the coach, I think there's a chance that he can make a rebound. Now, they didn't do him any favors in the draft. They basically drafted Xavier Leggett, who is a cloned copy of Jonathan Mingo. I don't know why you would do that and get the very same style of receiver in Xavier Leggett that you already have in Jonathan Mingo. Get somebody else, get him some better talent, maybe some speed or something. But anyways, I think Bryce Young's trajectory may look a little less bleak than some of these other guys just because he finally has a offensive mind. People said that about Frank Reich, but Dave Canales, I think, proved himself. Look what he did with Baker Mayfield on a Bucs team that was projected to go dead last and in the NFL. So there's some hope for Bryce Young, and I think he certainly has the talent. I think he just needs a better situation, a bit more confidence, and just some dominoes to fall his way. So that's my argument for Bryce Young there. But Deshaun Watson, Derek Carr, and those guys, Daniel Jones especially, no for me, dog. No for me. I even put Daniel Jones in a tier below guys like Derek Carr and Deshaun Watson, just because I think really low of Daniel Jones. I think if he hasn't done it by now, then there's no hope for him. And I'm just really anticipating the Giants on moving away from him in the very near future.
The team got worse. So, yeah. They're in tank mode. I think if for my last tier, you're in tank mode. You bench the quarterback, play a kicker as your quarterback, and just go tank mode.
Now, the one that will be curious is two of them actually will be Will Levis and Bo Nix. Bo Nix, obviously, I don't think they're going to tank. Sean Payton is also a guy who may be able to develop Bo Nix into something worthy of a starter, but we'll see. That's a project, and I won't believe it until I see it. Will Levis, on the other hand, is going to be interesting because, I don't really know what to take away from this. He had some moment, he had some high moments last year. He had some really low moments last year. It's this guy is all over the place. I don't know what his ceiling is. I don't know what his floor is. He's got the weapons now. He's got new ownership in Tennessee. He's got a new coach in Tennessee. So it's going to be very interesting to see, just given all of the changes from this past season to this next season, to see what Will Levis is capable of. And it's just kind of like a big guessing game at this point. A lot of these other guys, there's certainty, they're in the same offense for the consecutive year in a row. They have some of the same playmakers, or they're getting better playmakers. Will Levis, he has the same playmakers. He gained a playmaker in Calvin Ridley, but coaching is different. Management is different. Ownership is different. Everything is seemingly different for this Tennessee team, so we don't really know what to expect. And we got a smaller sample size of Will Levis last year, so I'm very curious to see how he comes out and performs this next season, and if he is able to maintain his starting position as quarterback. What do you think?
I mean, from a real analytical standpoint, he wears shirts too small, has mayo in his coffee, and he went to Kentucky. So
that's all you need to know?
That's all you need to know, man.
That's all you need to know. That's all you need to take away. So
cut him.
All right. Hey, any last remarks as we round off this QB tiers conversation?
No. I think that, I think you want a tier 1 or tier 2 guy. If obviously not, then you ain't winning a Super Bowl if not. So I'll just rest on that.
Yep. All right, guys. Hey, we appreciate you watching. We'll be back here next week. We're going to get into way too early NFL awards, as well as start diving into some of our division by division breakdowns, win totals, favorites to win the division, what we think is going to happen, and all of that fun stuff. So don't miss out. We appreciate you watching, and we'll be back next week.